Hi everyone, my name is Sylvester and I'm here to help you understand the incredible complexity of the human body. In this video, we are diving into a foundational concept in anatomy and physiology, the levels of structural organization or structural complexity. This topic is essential for understanding how the human body is organized from the tiniest atoms to the entire organism that we see. In fact, each level builds upon the previous one, creating a fascinatingly interconnected system that keeps us alive and functioning as human beings. So whether you're a student or you are just curious about knowing how the human body is organized, this topic is actually designed to break down complex concepts in this area to make it easy for you to grasp. So if this video is very helpful to you, please support the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing these contents to family and friends who may be interested or who may find this video or any other content on the channel very useful. Let's get started. Levels of structural organization. Now, if you look at the anatomy of a car, let's look at the anatomy of a car. If you look at the anatomy of a car from this diagram, you realize that a vehicle or a car is made up of different parts. Okay? The vehicle or the car is made up of different parts. Okay, so we have a car battery, we have a seat belt, we have a seat, okay, we have the oil pump and filter, we have the water pump and hoses, we have the radiator and the cooling fans, we have the roof of the car, we have the sunroof, we have the rain screen, we have the headlight. So we have these car as complex as it is made up of different parts. Is that okay? Good. If you look at this diagram over here, okay, good, you could see the various parts of a car, different parts. Okay, as complex as the final car will look like, it is made up of different parts. But the point is that behind or beyond these different parts that you see, the car can further be lowered down to tiniest compounds or tiniest elements. Okay, good. So because if you take the body of the car, for example, it's made up of metal, and metal is actually made from elements. Is that okay? Good. So as complex as the final car may look like you are seeing in this diagram, okay, it is built with very tiny elements. Then at the end of the day, we have the complex structure, the final car over here. Now, if we come to human being, it's the same concept that applies in human beings. Okay, so this is the final organism. Okay, but beyond these final organism that you see, okay, we achieved or arrived at this final organism by accumulating some tiny elements, so that at the end of the day, it goes through levels. Then we have the final organism, which is the human being. Okay, so you could see from this diagram that the human body is also made up of, just like the vehicle over here, the human body is also organized from different organs. Okay, so we have different organs. We have the brain, the lungs over here, the thyroid, the liver, the thymus gland. We have the heart, the kidneys, the stomach, the pancreas, the intestines, the bladder, and the reproductive system. So we have different organs coming together. Now at the end of the day, we have the complex organism, which is this human being over here. Okay, good. But beyond these organs, beyond these parts that you are seeing, okay, the body is built, this final organism is built with very basic substances which we call the chemical levels. Okay, and that this concept actually makes it relevant for us to look at this topic, levels of structural organization. Okay, because the human body is organized in certain levels, okay, before we have this final organism, which is the human being. Good. Now, the human body has 6 levels of organization or structural complexity. Okay, the human body has 6 levels of organization or structural complexity, and the levels are the chemical level, the cell level, the tissue level, organ system level, and organism level. Okay, these are the levels of structural complexity. Okay, the basic level, okay, is the chemical level, and the most complex level is the final organism, which we call the organism. Now, like I said earlier, the most basic level is the chemical level. Is that okay? This is the chemical level. This is the most basic level. Okay. Now, before we get to the second level, we accumulate the previous one. Okay. So the principle is that each higher level incorporates the structures and functions of the previous level. So if you come to the second level, it's higher than the first level. If you come to the third level is also higher than the second level and the first level. But the point here is that each higher level you go actually incorporates the structures and functions of the previous levels. So these organisms that you see over here as the complex level, as the most complex level, okay, this organism level, okay, is built by the previous levels, and this organism actually incorporates the structures and functions of the chemical level, the cell level, the tissue level, the organ level, and then the organ system level. Okay, so basically the human body is organized into structural and functional levels of increasing complexity. That means that the first level is least complex, is the simplest level. The basic level is like a foundational level. Okay, good. The next level, which is the cell level, is more complex or is higher than the first level, which is the chemical level. If you come to the third level, it's also higher than the cell level and the chemical level. But the point is that this is not an isolated level. This level actually incorporates the structures and then the functions of the chemical and cellular level. That means that before we get this tissue level, it's a combination of the structures and functions. Okay, an accumulation of the structures and functions from the first and then the second level. Then we get this third level. Okay, if we come to the organ level, it's also arrived at by accumulating the structures and functions of the chemical level, the cell level, and the tissue level. Okay, good. That is all that we mean by levels of structural complexity. Okay, now let's go and then let's look more specifically at the various levels. Now, the most basic level is this, the chemical level. The chemical level. Okay, what you have to understand is that, look at some of the chemicals over here. You have to understand that all living and non-living things are actually made of one or more unique substances that we call elements. Okay, so all living and non-living things. So like I said, if you look at this vehicle, okay, even though it has so many parts, but beyond these body parts of the vehicle that you are seeing, okay, good, beyond these, okay, it is made up of elements. Okay, so if you take the body as an example, which is made of metal, it's made of elements. Okay, good. Now, what you should know is that the simplest or the smallest unit of these elements is called atoms. Okay, atoms. So the human body basically, foundationally, is made up of elements. But the smallest unit of elements is atoms. Okay, now when two or more atoms comes together, they form molecules. Okay, and molecules can be large or small. We may have small molecules. For example, oxygen is a very small molecule. Carbon dioxide gas is a very small molecule. Okay, good. If you take a molecule like proteins, protein is very complex molecule. Glucose is also a very complex and a very large molecule. Okay, good. So for example, if you take oxygen gas is actually made up of two atoms of the element oxygen. Okay, if you take oxygen gas, for example, if you take carbon dioxide gas, for example, carbon dioxide gas is made up of one atom of carbon and then two atoms of the element or the atom oxygen. Okay, good. So that should tell you these molecules are made up of atoms. Okay, basically the common atoms that or elements that you can have in the body, we have oxygen, we have carbon, we have hydrogen atoms. These atoms are very common in the human body. Okay, because for example, if you take a large molecule like glucose, glucose is made up of 6 atoms of carbon, 12 atoms of hydrogen, and then 6 atoms of oxygen. Okay, if you take another very large molecule like proteins are made up of hundreds of atoms of carbon, of hydrogen, and of oxygen, and then even of nitrogen. Okay, so basically at the foundational level, which is the first level, okay, you would understand that molecules are actually the building blocks of all structures in the human body. So our body is made up of molecules. The human body is basically made up of molecules. Okay, so first of all, we understand that the body, at the chemical level, the body is made up of elements. But the basic unit of these elements are atoms. The smallest units of these elements are atoms. And when atoms come together, they form molecules. Okay, some of the molecules may be small, like oxygen gas and carbon dioxide gas, which are very small. Okay, good. Then we have large molecules like glucose and proteins. When these molecules comes together, okay, they give us this second level, which we call cells. Okay, so a cell is basically a combination of two or more molecules. Okay, so when two or more molecules come together, they give us the cell level. Okay, now, but before that, just understand that at the foundational level, which is the chemical level, molecules are the building blocks of all structures in the human body. Okay, so when two or more molecules come together, we arrive at the cell level. Okay, good. So this is the first level, the chemical level. All living and non-living things are made of elements, and the smallest unit of these elements are atoms. When atoms join together, they form molecules, which can be small, medium, or large. Okay, so molecules actually serve as the building blocks for all structures in the human body. Then the second level is the cellular level, the cell level. Okay, now understand that all structures in the human body are made of cells. Okay, and cells are made by combining or joining different molecules. So when you combine or join different molecules, just as you are seeing over here, we get cells. Okay, in fact, a cell is the smallest independent living thing in the human body. Is the basic unit of life. Okay, the basic unit of life is the smallest independent living thing in the human body. Okay, a cell. Okay, good. So all living structures are made up of cells, which are made of different molecules. Cells are the smallest independent living thing in the human body. Okay, so the body is made of different types of cells. So if you come to the body, we have cells like the muscle cell. And you know, muscle cells are the cells that actually contract to move, to enable the body to move an object. We have red blood cells, which are also responsible for carrying oxygen. Okay, so you realize that cells, the cell level is also a very important level. Okay, so from the chemical level, we come to the cell level. Then the third level is the tissue level. Okay, how do we arrive at a tissue level? When we combine two or more cells. Okay, so a tissue is a group of cells that works together to perform a specific function. The tissue level is the third level of structural complexity. Okay, so a tissue is a group of similar cells that work together to perform a specific function. Okay, basically we have four main types of tissues in human body. We have the muscular tissue, the epithelial tissue, the nervous tissue, and connective tissues. Okay, so anytime we combine two or more similar cells, or two or more similar cells come together to perform a specific function, then we have a tissue. Okay, good. Going further, if two or more tissues come together, they form a biological unit. Okay, good. And these biological units can independently perform specific function, and that gives us the organ level. So when two or more tissues come together, okay, so at the organ level, an organ is basically like an identifiable structure of a body which is composed of two or more types of tissue. Okay, so for example, if you look at this is the stomach. This is an organ. This stomach is made up of two or more tissues. So if you look at the stomach, a stomach will be made up of a muscle tissue, okay, an epithelial tissue, okay. So you could see that there are different types of tissues that are coming together to form the stomach, which is an organ. Okay, so anytime two or more tissues come together, okay, two or more, the underlying word is two or more tissues come together to perform a specific function, then it gives us the organ level. Okay, so for example, organs in the body like the brain, the heart, the liver, the stomach, the uterus, intestines, the bladder, and the skin are formed by combining or joining different types of tissues. And these organs independently performs specific functions in the body. Okay, that is the organ level. Okay, so you realize that, okay, all the levels, the levels that we've gotten to so far are accumulating from the previous levels. Okay, so the higher you go, it's an accumulation of the structures and functions of the previous levels. Okay, good. The fifth level is the organ system level. The organ system level. Okay, an organ system is a collection of organs in the body that works together to perform a function. Okay, we have 11 examples of organ systems in the human body. So we have the cardiovascular system, we have the nervous system, we have the respiratory system, we have the endocrine system, the reproductive system, the digestive system, the immune system, the integumentary system, the muscular system, the skeletal system, and then the excretory system. Okay, so we basically have 11 systems in the human body. Okay, now a system. Okay, so anytime different organs come together, okay, to perform a specific function, we call it a system. So for example, if you take the cardiovascular system, for example, we have organs like the heart, blood vessels, okay, all playing a role, the blood, all playing a role in the cardiovascular system. Okay, if you take the respiratory system, we have organs like the trachea, we have organs like the lungs, we have the bronchi, all these organs playing unique roles, okay, to give us a respiratory system. Okay, so anytime group of organs come together to perform specific functions, then it's a system. We are at the system level. Okay, so if you look at this system, this is a system, the digestive system. It's one of the 11 systems we have in the body. If you look at this digestive system, it is made up of the small intestines, the large intestines, the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, the appendix, the esophagus, the pharynx, the mouth, the teeth. Okay, different organs coming together to give us a system. Okay, now the systems, when all the systems in your body are put together, that is what gives us the final organism. That should tell you you can't have this final organism if you are lacking any of these systems. Let's go there. So the final complex structure or level is the organism level. This is the final level. This is the human being. Okay, if all these systems are not intact, this organism may not be functioning properly. Because if you remember when we started, I explained that the complex organism, okay, is actually an accumulation of the structures and functions of the previous levels. Okay, so even if we go down and the molecular combination, okay, to form the cells, there is an imbalance over there. Okay, this organism may not be complete. And that will take us to a different topic that we call homeostasis. Okay, which we'll be looking at in our next video. Okay, so this final organism that you see over here, okay, is a combination of all the systems in the body. It's not some of the systems. Okay, good. But then fine, with the organ system level, it's a combination of some organs. Okay, so the system is when two or more organs or some organs come together to perform a specific function. It gives us a system. But for the organism level, it's actually an accumulation of all the systems in the body. If you even lack the cardiovascular system as a human being, you will not, this organism may not be worth an organism. There may be a serious problem which will restrict defining it as an organism. If you take this nervous system out, you may not have this organism level. If you take the integumentary system out, you may not have this organism level. So if there is a problem in the cardiovascular system, okay, these organisms may be imbalanced in terms of functions and in terms of even structures. Okay, and that is what will lead us to a concept we call homeostasis. So anytime someone is having a problem with the cardiovascular system, there is going to be what we call, in this organism, is going to be imbalanced. Okay, so there will be what we call dyshomeostasis, and that is disease. There is going to be a disease. Okay, because the final organism, which is the complex organism, is an accumulation of the various levels from the chemical. So even if there is an imbalance in the chemical level, there is going to be what we call dyshomeostasis. There is going to be a disease, meaning this organism level is never going to be complete. Okay, so anytime someone is even having a problem, so you could see that the final complex organism, okay, it's an accumulation of the tiniest, the smallest level of organization, which is the chemical level. So anytime there is even an imbalance in the atomic concentration or even the molecular concentration at this level, there can be a problem with this organism, because before you arrive at the various organs that are in the body, at the organ level, the heart, the liver, the esophagus, there was a building up of what molecules to form tissues. Before the tissues, some come together to form these organs. Okay, so these organisms may be having a problem. There may be disequilibrium in this organism, which may be coming from the molecular level or the chemical level. Is that okay? And that is the reason why these levels of structural complexity is very important, to enable you appreciate, okay, how the smallest constituent organization of the body plays a role in the development of an abnormality, okay, or also plays a role in enable the body to achieve or operate in an optimum condition or a normal condition or in equilibrium. Is that okay? Good. So that is the levels of structural complexity. So in summary, we have 6 levels of structural complexity: the chemical level, the cell level, the tissue level, the organ level, the organ system level, and then the organism level. The most basic level is the chemical level. In fact, this is the foundational level. Okay, so if you go into every living and non-living thing, they are made up of elements. Now, the smallest unit of these elements are atoms. If you put 2 or more atoms together, they form molecules. Some molecules may be large and others may be small. We have large molecules like proteins, small molecules like oxygen gas, which are all in the body. In fact, the most common atoms we have, or that forms the human body, we have carbon atoms, oxygen atoms, hydrogen atoms, and nitrogen atoms. Okay, good. Now, if you put these atoms together, they form molecules. Okay, they form molecules. Okay, now, anytime 2 or more different molecules comes together, they form cells. And cell is also the second level of complexity. So cell level is more complex than the chemical level. But then it is a build-up of all the structures and functions in the chemical level. Okay, good. Then we have the cell level. Okay, so cell is basically made up of 2 or more, a combination or joining 2 or more molecules. Now, a cell, this is the basic unit of all living things or all living organisms. This is the basic unit of all living organisms. But cells are made of a combination of molecules. Okay, good. And a cell is basically the smallest independent living thing in the human body. Okay, good. That is a cell. If you add 2 or more cells together, it forms a tissue. Okay. If you add 2 or more, if 2 or more different tissues come together to perform a specific function, that brings us to the organ level. Okay? And anytime different organs come together to perform a specific role in the body, we call that a system level. Okay? And the various systems in the body, all the systems in the body, they come together to form an organism. Okay, an organism is not formed by 2 or more systems. That is one thing that you should know in the levels of structural complexity. The organism is not formed by 2 or more systems. When all the systems in the body comes together before we get this organism. So even if you take one system from this organism out, the organism, there may be disequilibrium. Okay, good. And the other side is that there can be a problem at this level, at this basic level of complexity, and it will affect the optimal operation of this organism or the optimal functioning of this organism. So this organism is a functional being, okay, but its ability, okay, to operate normally, okay, depends on all the levels. Okay, good. So that is the levels of structural complexity. So in summary, we have 6 levels of structural complexity: the chemical level, the cell level, the tissue level, the organ level, the organ system level, and then the organism level. The foundational level is the chemical level. Okay, now each higher or complex level that you go is an accumulation of the previous level, the structures and functions in the previous level. So this final level, which is the organism level, actually is an accumulation of all the previous levels.